Eugene Johnson woke before dawn most mornings, his body already moving on its own while his mind lingered in the quiet darkness of his small home in rural Alabama. He had lived in this house for as long as he could remember, a modest, wooden, frame building painted pale blue, its shutters faded by years of sun and rain. The walls inside were lined with photographs showing faces of relatives long past and scenes of his childhood. A little boy with bare feet standing in a cotton field, a teenage boy in a faded school uniform clutching a book, a younger man in a simple suit smiling beneath a railroad hat. Every picture told a piece of his story, a history woven together by family, faith, and the gentle strength he inherited from his mother. His mother, Clara Mae Johnson, had been the midwife for their community in a time when many families relied on hospitals far away or the ministrations of traveling doctors. She offered a steady, loving hand to expectant mothers. She delivered dozens of babies under simple lamps or by the light of a candle. Stories of her kindness were told at gatherings and church meetings throughout the county. When people felt frightened or alone, she would knock on their door with quiet assurance, her sweet voice soothing their fears. As a boy, Eugene watched her work. He saw how she washed her hands carefully in a chipped enamel basin, how she whispered words of comfort to each mother, how she soothed the cries of newborns as if they were tiny treasures in her arms. From her, he learned the value of patience, compassion, and the power of stepping forward when others needed help the most. In those early years, Eugene never imagined he would follow a path anywhere near his mother's. He loved her dearly, but the life of a midwife seemed distant and demanding in ways that did not appeal to a curious boy whose heart was set on adventure. Instead, he found solace in trains. From the time he was 10, he would slip out behind their house where the single set of tracks cut through the fields like a ribbon of steel. When the train's whistle blew in the distance, he would sprint barefoot across the dew-covered grass to stand close by. The locomotive would rumble past, its cars creaking and whistling, and he felt something stir inside him, a mixture of awe and excitement. Each powerful engine spoke of distant places and stories untold. In that humming vibration, he sensed a world he longed to explore. After high school, he secured a job on the railways as a porter. He polished the floors, checked tickets, and carried luggage for weary travelers. He saved every cent he could, and one day, a seasoned conductor noticed his steady work ethic and offered him a chance to train as a train attendant. Eugene accepted without hesitation. Over the next several years, he learned finer skills: how to announce stops with clarity, how to navigate the cramped aisles with a loaded trolley, and how to ease passengers' concerns with a few kind words. He wore his uniform with pride: a crisp navy jacket, a cap bearing the railroad's insignia, and a name badge that read E. Johnson. Yet among his fellow attendants, he was simply known as Docs, a nickname that originated from a quip he once made about his mother's influence. When colleagues asked why he cared so deeply about people's needs, he would smile and say, "I learned from the best doctor there ever was, my mom." Many years passed. In the summers, he would return to Alabama for visits. He would talk with his mother about the changes she had seen, how some of the women she once helped as a midwife had already passed on, and how new families stepped into her place of honor at church. She would remind him of old sayings his grandparents used, like, "A kind word is worth more than $1,000,000, and the best help is given when no one is looking." He treasured these visits, though they became less frequent as his schedule grew busier. His mother's health started to fail, and Eugene often worried he had not come home as often as he should. Still, he believed he lived out her lessons every day on the train, and this thought comforted him. By 2025, Eugene was 72 years old. He had served as a train attendant for more than 4 decades, riding a route that stretched from Memphis to Chicago and back. He knew every sleeper car bunk, every foot of hallway, and every creaking joint in the train's frame. He was one of the last attendants who knew the old ways of doing things: handwritten reports, face-to-face greetings, and a genuine eagerness to learn each passenger's name. Younger staff sometimes teased him about being set in his habits, but they also admired his grace under pressure. To Eugene, the train was a living, breathing creature. He felt when its wheels skipped, heard when its engine shifted, and respected its stubborn insistence on adhering to schedules no matter what obstacles lay ahead. On a warm June morning, Eugene finished his shift in Memphis and took a short break before the southbound train departed that evening. He lingered by the station's platform, sipping thick, sweet coffee from a styrofoam cup. The sun had almost set, painting the sky with soft orange and purple hues. As he walked back toward the train, a gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine from nearby gardens. Children played by the tracks, laughing and chasing each other as if the world held no danger. He smiled at them and tipped his hat, feeling a quiet gratitude for the life he had lived. A life filled with small, meaningful acts of service. Inside the train, the dining car buzzed with conversation. Plates clinked, voices rose in laughter, and the soft glow of overhead lights illuminated the faces of travelers sharing stories. Some were families on their way to reunions, others business people hurrying to meetings, and still others adventurers seeking sights in cities far from home. Eugene moved through the aisles, offering refills of coffee, folding a creased blanket for a sleeping child, or chatting with a regular passenger who boarded every month. "Hello, Miss Rogers," he greeted an elderly woman knitting a scarf by the window. "How are these stitches coming along?" She beamed at him and lifted her needles. "Right on schedule, thanks to you early with my tea." His presence soothed many. His deep, comforting voice and warm smile made them feel at ease in a world of rolling wheels and distant destinations. At around 9 in the evening, Eugene finished his routine checks and prepared for his next duty. He checked his watch. It was 9:05 p.m. as the train neared the Mississippi River. He made his way back to the sleeper car, where passengers settled into narrow bunks. He checked tickets once more, offering a polite nod and a kind word to each who needed his help. At the very end of the car, he paused by a young woman seated near the window. She wore a light dress and her face looked unsettled. As he handed her a blanket, she whispered, "Thank you, sir." There was something in her tone, soft, almost fearful, but also determined. He sensed she might be in some discomfort. He watched her for a moment, her hand pressed to her lower abdomen, her eyes occasionally closing as if trying to calm herself. He offered a gentle smile and asked, "Are you feeling all right, ma'am?" She looked up, startled that he had noticed. She nodded, though her expression was tense. "Just a little nervous," she said softly. "I'm pregnant. This is my first time traveling alone." He bent slightly to meet her gaze. "How far along are you?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Almost at the end. I was supposed to see my sister in Chicago, but I thought maybe this ride would help me relax." Before he could respond, her face drew tight, and she gently pressed both hands against her belly. She inhaled sharply. Eugene's heart skipped. Something was happening. He folded his arms calmly and said, "Stay right here, ma'am. I'll call for help." He moved swiftly down the narrow hallway to fetch a small supply cart he used for restocking pillows and blankets. He knew that any moment could demand his full attention, and he felt a familiar surge of purpose. The same sense of duty his mother had felt so many times when she rushed to a mother in labor. As he returned, the woman sank lower in her seat, and beads of sweat gathered at her hairline. He knelt, setting the cart beside her. Hands steady, he placed a soft blanket across her lap. "Tell me what you feel," he said in a quiet, reassuring voice. She drew in a slow breath. "I think the baby's coming," she whispered. He glanced down at her shaking hands and felt a mixture of concern and resolve. He had seen births with his mother. He knew there would be pain, blood, and moments that required absolute calm. He took a clean towel from his cart and asked a nearby passenger to open the duffel bag she carried for any cloths or supplies. His mind shifted from routine duties to the singular focus of guiding a mother through labor. He instructed the woman to lean back against the cushioned wall of the car and took a second look at her face. Her eyes were moist, her lips slightly parted as another contraction gripped her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, giving a firm but gentle grip. "You're not alone," he said. He used the towel to gently wipe her brow and offered her chilled water from a small thermos he carried in his coat pocket. He could see passengers gathering at the ends of their bunks, curious but cautious. He caught the eye of a young nurse, hurrying down the aisle, and they shared a nod. He would need her help if things progressed. Yet at that moment the corridor felt suspended in a hush, as if everyone sensed the gravity of what was about to unfold. Back in his childhood home, he would recall how his mother placed her cool, calloused hand on the brow of each laboring woman. Eugene moved quickly down the narrow hallway, each step measured so he would not miss a moment. Carmen leaned back against the wall of her seat, her face drawn tight with pain. He had fetched his small supply cart, the one he used to carry extra blankets, pillows, and occasionally snacks for passengers who felt restless. Now, it would serve as an emergency medical station. He set the cart down gently, careful not to let it rattle too loudly against the metal floor. The muted clatter of the train's wheels over the rails provided a constant backdrop of sound, a reminder that time was pressing forward. He bent down and reached onto the cart's lower shelf. There he had stocked clean towels, an unopened package of sterilized pads, some bottled water, and a small packet of antiseptic wipes left from a passenger who had once thanked him for helping clean a small cut. He took a stack of fresh towels and unfolded one to lay across the seat where Carmen sat. The towel was soft, lightly scented with lavender from a previous load of laundry, and it felt comforting beneath Carmen's trembling hands. He glanced up at her, meeting her eyes. In that moment, every thought focused on her safety. "Just breathe, ma'am," he said in a calm voice, lowering himself to one knee beside her. His uniform, typically starched and neat, felt heavy on his shoulders, as though it carried all the responsibility of the people on the train. Carmen nodded, her lips pressed together. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, then took a slow breath as instructed. Eugene placed a damp towel on her forehead and she closed her eyes, leaning into the fabric. He glanced around. A handful of passengers had gathered at a respectful distance, peering through the small windows of the vestibule doors. Their faces reflected a mix of curiosity and concern. Some clutched onto their luggage. Others held their young children close. A mother rocked a baby in her arms, the child's soft whimpers blending with the train's rumble. None spoke. They simply watched, as if their silence offered some support. Eugene searched for extra space. He spotted a folded tablecloth hanging on the side of the cart. It was clean and free of stains. He spread it on the floor beside Carmen's seat, making a small, clear area where he could work. The cloth lay flat despite the subtle shifting of the train beneath them. He moved a small stack of towels onto the cloth, aligning them neatly. Each towel served as a buffer between hard metal and the expectant mother, who now breathed more steadily, trying to brace herself for the next contraction. Carmen's breathing had slowed, but her hand tightened around the towel on her forehead. The lights overhead hummed softly, casting a warm glow on the passengers' faces. Someone had dimmed the hallway lights a bit, creating a calmer atmosphere. It felt almost like a stage where every detail mattered. The hush of voices in the adjacent car, the thin smell of cleaning solution lingering in the air, the soft hum of the air conditioning above. "How far apart are your contractions now?" Eugene asked quietly. His voice did not waver, but he waited for her to answer. Carmen paused, as if counting each second. "About 2 minutes," she whispered. Her eyes fluttered open and closed. Each contraction squeezed her from the inside, but she fought through it, determined to keep control. Eugene nodded. 2 minutes was fast. He needed to be ready for helping deliver a child soon. He reached for the antiseptic wipes and wiped his hands, even though his mother had taught him long ago that soap and water were best. The antiseptic would have to do for now. He folded the wipes and placed them on top of the towels next to the sterile pads. He arranged them carefully so he could grab each in an instant. He spoke softly, choosing his words with care. "Let me count with you. Inhale slowly. 1, 2, 3. Exhale slowly. 1, 2. Carmen followed along, her eyes focused on Eugene's face. She nodded as she exhaled. Her breathing steadied slightly, though her shoulders shook. He placed his free hand over hers, giving her a stable presence. A sudden lurch of the train on uneven tracks caused a loud rumble. Carmen gasped, her body tensing in reaction. Eugene's heart sank for a moment, but he slid his arm around her, back steadying her frame. His calm grip and gentle words eased her. "It's all right," he said firmly. "I'm here." The quake passed and the train settled. Passengers murmured among themselves. Some found seats nearby to avoid blocking the hallway. One man quietly offered a water bottle. Eugene took it with a grateful nod. Moments later, Carmen closed her eyes and a firm contraction crept in. Eugene watched carefully. He saw her knuckles whiten on the towel. He loosened the towel and allowed her to grip his hand. As the contraction peaked, he guided her to lean forward slightly, supporting her as best he could in the confined space. He felt the tremor in her frame but remained steady. When the contraction eased, he helped her sit back against the wall. She exhaled deeply, sweat glistening on her upper lip. With measured calm, Eugene asked, "Do you want me to call for medical assistance at the next station?" Carmen opened her eyes, meeting his look. She shook her head. "No," she said, in a soft, rattled voice. "It's happening now. I think I can't wait." That moment, he felt the weight of responsibility press upon him. He straightened up, dialogue in his mind echoing his mother's gentle command. "When duty calls, stand firm." A sense of urgency settled in the air. Eugene slid a sterile pad from its wrapper and placed it on the floor beneath Carmen. Then, unfolded a clean towel and set it across her lap. The brightness of the overhead light reflected off the white fabric, and for a second, he thought of his mother's small lantern in the night, guiding, steady, unafraid. He reached for another towel and unfolded it, ready to catch whatever came next. Carmen's breathing began to change again. Faster, shorter breaths. Her eyes remained fixed on a spot somewhere ahead, but the spot was her own mind, focused inward. He knelt closer, speaking softly. "Carmen, I'm here. With each breath, you're bringing your baby closer to you. Trust yourself." She nodded, her lips quivering. Her next breath came quickly and he braced himself. Passengers shifted uneasily nearby. A woman reached over to comfort her daughter, whispering, "Everything will be okay." A few seats away, a young man held his phone still, as if uncertain whether to film or simply watch. Eugene caught his eye and shook his head gently, signaling that he did not want to be recorded. The man paused, then tucked his phone away and folded his hands. Respect replaced curiosity. As the next contraction tightened, Carmen pressed her hands to her stomach. Each wave brought her closer to the moment of truth. Eugene's hands hovered, ready to assist. He thought of his mother's stories, how she would encourage a mother to breathe, how she would whisper prayers under her breath. He had never delivered a baby himself, but in his childhood, he had watched his mother's strong, calm hands guide new life into the world. He felt a surge of confidence. Carmen leaned forward, gripping the towels. Her knuckles pressed into the fabric, and her entire body trembled. Eugene placed one hand on her back, offering gentle pressure and support. He held her shoulder with his other hand, whispering, "Push when you feel it good. Keep breathing." The corridor felt tight, the walls close, but Eugene's voice carried a sense of space and reassurance. A sudden pain brighter than the rest cut through Carmen, and Eugene helped brace her. She gave one strong, determined push. For a fleeting moment, everything stilled. The rhythmic clatter of wheels, the murmur of passengers, even the train's own breathing. It was as though time paused for her to push with all her might. With that push, the baby's head began to appear. Eugene felt a quick rush of excitement and fear. He knelt lower, adjusting a fresh towel beneath the baby's head. Carmen gasped, her eyes shining with pain and hope. She blinked back tears. Eugene placed a hand on her belly, offering gentle guidance. "The head is out. One more push when you're ready." She nodded, gathering strength. He felt her leg tremble beneath his hand, but her determined grip held strong. Another contraction came. With a final, resolute push, the rest of the baby's body followed. The corridor filled with a collective intake of breath. Eugene reached down and cradled the newborn as she came into the world. Her small body was slippery and warm, slick with the vernix that covered her skin. Eugene lifted her carefully, placing her on Carmen's chest. He wiped her face gently with a clean towel. The baby gave a tiny cry that sounded strong and clear, like a promise. Carmen's eyes filled with relief, disbelief, and joy all at once. She leaned forward to gather her child, tears spilling down her cheeks. Passengers watched, some wiping tears from their own eyes. A hush settled over the train. Even the sound of the wheels on the track seemed to soften, as though respectfully silent. A few moments passed, and then Carmen let out a soft cry of happiness. Little droplets of tears fell onto her baby's downy skin. Eugene stayed at her side, guiding the baby to latch onto Carmen's breast for her first feeding. He held the towel beneath them to catch any fluids, careful to keep the area clean. The nurse who had hurried to assist arrived just in time to check the baby's breathing and pulse. She smiled at Eugene and nodded as though saying, "You did well." She placed a gentle hand on Carmen's shoulder and offered her a warm bottle of water mixed with a bit of sugar, a makeshift energy drink to help replace what she had lost. Eugene felt the train's gentle sway beneath his feet as he supported Carmen, who leaned against the hallway wall. Each time the train rolled over a joint in the track, it rattled softly, and Carmen's face tightened as a new wave of pain crept through her body. Her breathing grew shallow and quick, and she pressed a towel to her forehead, trying to remain calm. Eugene knelt beside her and placed a hand on her back, offering firm, gentle support. "Breathe with me," he whispered, counting slowly. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2. Carmen followed, her eyes closing as she leaned into his steady voice. The rhythmic clatter of steel on steel outside mixed with the labored sound of her breathing, making the narrow corridor feel alive with tension and hope. At that moment, a sudden lurch startled both of them. The train had hit a rough patch of track, causing the lights overhead to flicker for a second. Carmen gasped, her body stiffening as another contraction seized her. Eugene's heart pounded. He slid an arm under her shoulders, bracing her so she would not collapse. His other hand hovered over the supplies he had arranged: clean towels, sterilized pads, antiseptic wipes. He had followed his mother's lessons about hygiene, knowing that germs could cause danger to both mother and child. Now, without a proper medical kit, he used what he had on hand and made sure everything stayed as clean as possible. As the light steadied again, Carmen exhaled and tried to adjust her position, but the pain made her body rigid. Passengers peeked through the narrow windows into the hallway. Some sat quietly in nearby seats, wide-eyed and worried. Others held children close, unsure whether to intervene or wait. A young couple whispered to each other, their faces pale. A little girl clutched a teddy bear, her eyes darting between Carmen and Eugene. The faces around them reflected surprise, concern, and admiration. Eugene looked up and met the young couple's gaze. He gave them a small nod, signaling that everything was under control. Their worried expressions softened just a bit, trusting the calm he projected. He felt a surge of responsibility. This was not just a job. It was a moment where lives depended on his courage and care. Carmen's voice trembled as she whispered, "I'm scared." Eugene squeezed her hand. "It's okay," he assured her. "You are doing great. Just keep breathing." He reached into the cart and pulled out a bottle of water. He wiped her, lips gently, and offered her a sip. She drank slowly, the cool liquid soothing her dry throat. Yet another contraction began, and the muscles in her abdomen tightened fiercely. She took another breath, leaning forward and closing her eyes. Eugene leaned close, guiding her breaths. "In and out," he encouraged. From somewhere in the train, muffled footsteps approached. A young nurse, clutching a small bag, arrived breathless. She placed a comforting hand on Carmen's arm and introduced herself softly. "I'm Nurse Jackson. I'm here to help," she said. Carmen nodded, relief and fear mixed in her eyes. Nurse Jackson knelt on the other side of Carmen, checking her pulse and feeling the baby's position. She whispered explanations to Eugene. "The baby is low. Get ready for the next push." Eugene's face remained steady, but inside he felt a surge of adrenaline. He remembered his mother's gentle hands guiding life into the world. He swallowed hard and set aside his own worry. Now, his focus was entirely on Carmen and the tiny life stirring within her. The train continued to hum along the tracks, each mile bringing them closer to a station with more help. But the baby was moving faster than any schedule. As another contraction seized Carmen, her grip on Eugene's hand tightened until his knuckles whitened. Her body trembled with effort. The hallway smelled faintly of antiseptic wipes and the linen of clean towels. Eugene placed a fresh towel against her belly, ready to catch any fluid. He remembered how his mother had used soft cloths and whispering prayers as she coaxed newborns into the world. He whispered similar words now. "You are strong. The baby will be here soon." Carmen groaned softly, chin pressed to her chest. The train lurched slightly again, and she cried out. Eugene braced himself, careful not to let her slip, and guided her to sit back down on the towel-covered floor. He wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead and offered more water. Time stretched. The minutes became a series of contractions, breaths, and reassurances. Carmen's breathing became more erratic. As the baby descended further, Nurse Jackson kept one hand on Carmen's pulse and the other gently on her belly, feeling how close the baby was to crowning. Passengers watched in awe, mouths slightly open, but they remained silent. A sense of shared responsibility rippled through them, as though everyone in that narrow corridor had become part of a secret, urgent mission. Eugene realized that for these people, this night would always be remembered. They were witnesses to a life-threatening moment resolved by compassion and quick thinking. Carmen tried to steady herself, her body quivering with each pang of pain. "I can't," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Eugene knelt beside her, keeping his voice gentle. "Yes, you can," he said softly. "Just one more push. You are so close." He wiped her mouth with a damp towel and held her hand firmly, giving her the support she needed. Her breathing quickened and then slowed as she summoned every ounce of strength. Eugene counted aloud, keeping time with her breaths. 1, 2, 3. Push. Carmen clenched her fists around the towel and pushed with all her might. The corridor felt smaller now, the walls closing in as the moment reached its peak. The hush around them grew deeper. Outside noises seemed distant, muffled by the gravity of what was unfolding. Suddenly, a warm wetness spread across Carmen's thighs. Nurse Jackson's face lit up. "Here she comes," she said, her voice calm but urgent. Eugene felt his own heart pound in his ears. Carmen gave one final powerful push. The baby's head slipped free, and then, with a rush of fluid, the rest of her tiny body followed. Eugene, guided by instinct and memories of his mother's teachings, gently eased the newborn into the world. For a moment, the only sound was the baby's first cry, a small, urgent wail that echoed down the hallway in defiance of the train's steady rumble. It was a sound that filled the tight space with something larger than fear, something pure and new. Carmen sank back against the wall, her face flushed with relief and exhaustion. Eugene placed the baby on her chest, pressing a clean towel beneath them. The infant's skin was slick and warm, and she squirmed slightly, opening her tiny fists. Tears slid down Carmen's cheeks as she looked down at her child, her hands gently stroking the baby's hair. "She's beautiful," Carmen whispered, her voice breaking. Eugene felt his own eyes mist over. He knelt there, watching as Carmen cradled her baby, both of them glowing in the soft light. Around them, passengers let out quiet sighs of relief. A mother across the way hugged her daughter, soft sobs escaping her lips. A man bowed his head, eyes closed in silent gratitude. It felt as though the entire car exhaled together. Nurse Jackson checked the baby's breathing and wiped her face with a soft cloth. She gently placed a clean pad between Carmen's legs and tied a strip of clean cloth to secure it, acting quickly but with tenderness. "She is healthy," the nurse said. "Good, strong heartbeat." Carmen reached down and held her baby too. Her breast and the baby instinctively began to seek nourishment. Eugene pressed a fresh towel to Carmen's forehead and handed her water. She drank slowly, focusing on the baby's small face. For a moment, the train's world narrowed to the soft skin pressed between mother and child, their breaths matching in a quiet, perfect rhythm. As the parent train closed in on the next station, a sense of calm finally settled over the hallway. Eugene gently arranged more towels beneath Carmen and her daughter, ensuring they stayed comfortable. The red light of an approaching station blinked in the distance through a small window. Soon medical staff would arrive to transfer mother and baby to a proper hospital bed. Eugene felt a strange mixture of relief and nostalgia. He had witnessed his first birth as an attendant, just as his mother had taught him to care for others. He thought back to her guiding hands, her calm voice in the dark of night. Now, in this moving steel corridor, he had put those lessons into action. Passengers began to shuffle back to their seats as the conductor's announcement came. "Ladies and gentlemen, the train will be stopping shortly at Jackson Station. Please return to your seats." A few people lingered for a moment, offering soft congratulations or simply nodding in respect before moving away. The little girl with the teddy bear approached and held out her stuffed animal to Carmen. Carmen lifted her baby and reached over, taking the bear with her free hand. She smiled, at the child, tears still in her eyes. "Thank you for this precious gift," she whispered. The girl's mother smiled warmly and patted her daughter's shoulder, pride shining in her eyes. Eugene stood, carefully moving aside so the corridor was clear for the paramedics. He watched as Carmen and her baby were gently lifted onto a stretcher, the lights of the ambulance casting a glow on their faces. Before stepping aside, Christine told them, "I'll make sure you both get the care you need." Carmen nodded, clutching her baby close. She looked at Eugene and lifted her hand in a small wave. He bowed his head slightly and gave her a thumbs up. "Take care, ma'am," he said softly. The doors closed behind them and Carmen was carried off into the brightly lit station. The train pulled into Jackson Station just a few minutes after the birth, its metal wheels slowly screeching to a stop. Outside, red and blue lights flashed as an ambulance waited on the platform. Paramedics stood ready, holding a stretcher and carrying medical kits, not knowing yet that a miracle had just happened on board. Eugene stood back as they gently lifted Carmen and her newborn daughter, who was wrapped snugly in warm towels, her small face barely visible. Carmen looked tired but peaceful. Her eyes were locked on the tiny bundle in her arms, and she gave the paramedics a small, grateful nod. Before they wheeled her away, Carmen turned her head toward Eugene. Their eyes met in a silent moment filled with emotion. She lifted her hand slowly, waving gently. "Thank you," she said in a soft, raspy voice. Her words were quiet but full of meaning. Eugene tipped his cap in return and gave a warm, humble smile. "Take care, ma'am," he replied. Then, just like that, she was gone, disappearing into the cool night air, carried down the platform and into the care of hospital staff. The train remained paused for a little while longer. Eugene stood quietly in the hallway, holding the now empty water bottle he had offered Carmen earlier. It still had her fingerprints on it. Around him, the passengers slowly returned to their seats, their faces full of wonder and quiet smiles. Some gave Eugene a respectful nod as they passed. Others whispered kind words. "You were amazing," "That was incredible," or simply, "Thank you." But Eugene didn't look for praise. He felt no need to explain himself or take credit. In his heart, he had only done what he believed was right. A few minutes later, Eugene walked slowly back toward the dining car, pushing his cart of supplies. The towels had been folded neatly, and the used ones were placed in a sealed laundry bag. His hands still trembled a little, not from fear but from the emotion of what he had just witnessed. Inside the dining car, the mood was different now. It wasn't loud with laughter or busy with clinking dishes. Instead, it was quiet, almost peaceful. A kind of calm had settled over everyone. People talked in gentle voices, exchanging smiles and stories about what they had seen. The train had become more than just a ride from one place to another. It had become the setting of something unforgettable. One of the younger attendants, a man named Chris, walked over to Eugene with wide eyes. "Sir," he said, "I've never seen anything like that in my life." Eugene chuckled softly, still wiping his hands with a cloth. "Neither have I," he replied, shaking his head. "But I guess some things just come naturally when the moment arrives." Chris helped him fold the last of the towels. Do you think the baby's going to be okay?" he asked quietly. Eugene nodded with confidence. "She's strong, just like her mama. She came into this world ready." Later, as the train rolled forward once again, Eugene stepped outside into the vestibule between cars. He needed a moment to breathe in the night air. The stars sparkled above and the wind rushed past, cool and gentle. He closed his eyes and remembered his mother's voice, her stories, her strong hands guiding new life into the world with nothing more than faith, kindness, and care. "Mama," he whispered into the wind, "I hope I made you proud tonight." Back inside, word of Eugene's act of kindness and bravery spread quickly. A passenger named Mr. Henry, who had witnessed the whole event, had already sent a message to a local news station from his phone. "You have to tell this story," he had written. "A train worker helped deliver a baby in the hallway of a moving train. I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life." Before long, the story began traveling faster than the train itself. By the time they reached the next big stop, local reporters were waiting with cameras and notepads, hoping to speak to Eugene. But Eugene, true to his humble nature, didn't want to be in the spotlight. When asked for a statement, he simply said, "It wasn't about me. It was about helping someone who needed it. I just did what I was raised to do." The reporters pressed for more, wanting to know details. But Eugene quietly returned to work, checking on elderly passengers, refilling water, and helping a child find his misplaced backpack. To him, every passenger mattered just as much as the one who gave birth. That's how he had always seen his job, not just as work, but as a service. Back at the station in Memphis a day later, Eugene's manager called him into the office. On the desk was a small wooden plaque with his name engraved on it. Below his name were the words, "With gratitude for your bravery, kindness, and heart." His manager smiled. "This is for you, and the company is going to share your story across all our routes. You reminded us what this job really means." Eugene ran a hand over the plaque and smiled softly. He wasn't one for awards or speeches, but this one felt different. It wasn't about attention. It was about legacy. It was about how the lessons of his mother, the quiet nights spent watching her care for others, had led to a moment where he could do the same. He thought of all the babies his mother had helped deliver, all the mothers who had thanked her with tears in their eyes. And now, somewhere in a hospital room, a new mother was whispering stories about an old man on a train who helped her when no one else knew what to do. Later that week, Eugene received a letter in the mail. It was from Carmen. The envelope was neat, and inside was a handwritten note on soft pink paper. It read, "Dear Mr. Johnson, there are no words that can truly express what you did for me and my daughter. You stayed with me when I was scared and alone. You comforted me, encouraged me, and helped bring my little girl safely into this world. Because of you, I was not alone. You reminded me that kindness still lives in this world. I named my daughter Joy Marie. Her middle name is after my late mother, but her first name is because of the joy you gave me that night. I will tell her this story every year on her birthday. Thank you. With all my heart. Carmen." Eugene sat on his porch that evening, holding the letter close to his chest. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, and the sounds of crickets began to rise in the distance. He rocked slowly in his wooden chair, thinking of Joy Marie, thinking of his mother, and thinking of how one train ride had changed so many lives. And though the world around him stayed quiet, in his heart, he felt the echo of that baby's first cry, the cry of new life, the sound of hope. and the reminder that every act of kindness, no matter how small, can become something unforgettable. The next few weeks passed slowly for Eugene, but the memory of that special night on the train stayed fresh in his mind. Every time he stepped into the hallway where Carmen had given birth, he felt something different, something warmer. It was as if the very air held a gentle reminder of the miracle that had taken place there. The passengers didn't know what had happened in that narrow space, but Eugene did. And every time he touched the walls, every time the train gently rocked along the tracks, he remembered the sound of the baby's first cry and Carmen's tears of joy. As word spread across the rail line, Eugene became a quiet hero. His fellow attendants treated him with deep respect. Some of the younger ones followed him around during their shifts, eager to learn more from the man who had delivered a baby with nothing but towels, steady hands, and a kind heart. They asked him questions, not just about that night, but about everything: how to speak to nervous passengers, how to spot someone in need, and how to keep calm during stressful situations. Eugene answered each question with patience, just as his mother had done with him when he was a boy. The railway company held a small ceremony in Eugene's honor. It wasn't fancy or loud, just a gathering at the train station with a few chairs, some flowers, and a big banner that read, "Thank you, Eugene." A manager gave a short speech saying that Eugene had gone above and beyond the call of duty. He didn't just do his job, the manager said. He became a part of someone's life story. That's something we can all learn from. People clapped, some took pictures, and Eugene was handed a certificate of appreciation and a pin shaped like a baby's footprint to wear on his jacket. He blushed as cameras clicked, waving shyly and smiling. "I just did what anyone should do," he said. "Help when someone needs help." Back in his quiet home, Eugene placed the certificate and pin next to a photo of his mother. He looked at the picture, her strong face, her warm smile, her eyes that always seemed to know what to do. He whispered, "That was your wisdom in me, Mama." He lit a candle and sat in his rocking chair, letting the memory of that train ride wrap around him like a soft blanket. Not long after, a letter arrived with a return address from Little Rock, Arkansas. Eugene opened it carefully and found not just a note but a photo. It was a picture of baby Joy Marie, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, her tiny hand curled into a fist near her cheek. Beside her was Carmen, smiling brightly, her eyes filled with peace. The note read, "Dear Mr. Eugene, Joy Marie is doing wonderfully. She is healthy, curious, and full of giggles. Every time I hold her, I remember your calm voice, your steady hands, and the kindness you gave me when I was most afraid. I wanted to send you this picture so you could see how happy she is. I hope we can meet again someday. You are part of our family now." With love and gratitude, Carmen and Joy Eugene held the photo close to his chest. He stared at the tiny girl's face, imagining her growing up, learning to walk, saying her first words, going to school. Somewhere in her life story, there would always be a mention of the man on the train who helped bring her safely into the world. It made his heart full. Months passed, and Eugene continued working the same route. Passengers sometimes recognized him from the news or from the company's story newsletter. Some would ask him to tell the birth story again, and he would share it gently, never bragging, just describing what happened in a way that reminded people how powerful small acts of care can be. "I didn't do anything fancy," he'd say with a small laugh. "I just stayed calm and remembered what my mama taught me." People would listen closely, some smiling, others with tears in their eyes. The story touched everyone differently, but it always left a mark. One day, during a stop in Memphis, Eugene walked past a small bookstore and saw something in the window that made him stop. It was a children's book titled The Girl Born on the Train. Curious, he stepped inside and asked about it. The shop owner smiled and handed him a copy. "It's based on a real story," she said. "A schoolteacher named Carmen wrote it. It's for her daughter Joy." Eugene turned the pages slowly, his eyes softening as he read the simple words and looked at the pictures. A kind-faced train worker, a brave mother, and a peaceful train rolling through the night. On the final page, There was a drawing of an old man holding a baby wrapped in a towel. Underneath it read, "Some heroes don't wear capes. Some wear train hats and carry towels." Eugene smiled, tears welling up in his eyes. He bought a copy and asked the shop owner to wrap it carefully. That evening, he mailed it to his niece, who had a 5-year-old daughter back in Alabama. "Read this to her," he wrote in a note. "Tell her it's a true story, and remind her that kindness is always stronger than fear." As the years passed, Eugene worked fewer shifts. His knees ached more often and his back didn't move like it once did, but he still wore his uniform with pride. Whenever he boarded the train, passengers greeted him like an old friend. Some gave him small gifts, homemade cookies, thank you, notes, even drawings from children. He saved them all, storing each memory in a wooden box beside his bed. When he finally decided to retire, the company threw him a farewell party on board the train itself. It was decorated with streamers, balloons, and even a cake shaped like a train. Someone had written, "All aboard for kindness," in icing. As the train made its final trip with Eugene in uniform, something special happened. Carmen and Joy Marie boarded at one of the small stations. Joy, now 5 years old, ran into Eugene's arms. "I've been waiting to see you again," she cried. Eugene laughed, lifting her gently. "You've grown so big," he said, his voice full of wonder. Carmen hugged him warmly. "We wanted to say thank you again, not just for that night, but for who you are." Joy handed him a handmade card. Inside it was a crayon drawing of Eugene holding a baby with the words, "Thank you for helping me be born." The passengers clapped as Eugene sat down with Joy beside him, telling her how she had come into the world under a sky full of stars, on a train moving gently through the night. She listened closely, eyes wide, resting her head on his shoulder, and as the train moved forward, Eugene felt a sense of peace, knowing that life had come full circle. He had lived a quiet life, filled with small acts of service. He hadn't chased fame and he hadn't needed riches, but in one unforgettable moment he had changed the world for someone, and that he knew was enough. Because in the end, what matters most is not how many people know your name, but how many lives are better because you showed up when it counted. As the sun set outside the window, painting the sky with gold and pink, Eugene looked out and smiled. A new chapter had begun, for Carmen, for Joy, and even for himself. And somewhere deep in his heart he heard his mother's voice again, gentle and proud. "Well done, my son. Well done."